2 centuries, Georgetown has shaped academic excellence, inspired changemakers, and built a tradition of leadership in service to the common good.
Georgetown's Capitol campus, just steps from the heart of policymaking, global dialogue, and innovation. For 150 years, Georgetown Law has called Capitol Hill home. Now, it anchors a new vision.
We are bringing together policy, business, health, technology, and the environment in a way that only Georgetown can.
This is more than a new campus. It's a place where ideas turn into action. We're able to engage with faculty in real-world problem solving.
This is where knowledge meets impact.
We're not just expanding our footprint, we're expanding possibilities, because education isn't confined to a classroom. It happens in the city, in the world, in the moments that challenge and inspire us.
We're in one of the most dynamic neighborhoods in Washington, getting the opportunity to live, learn, and shape the future together.
A vibrant campus community is taking shape, rooted in our Jesuit values, driven by engagement, and built for impact.
On the hilltop, in the heart of DC, and across our global community, Georgetown is moving forward because our mission is not to stand still. It is to lead, to serve, and to shape the future. This is Georgetown's Capitol Campus.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Georgetown University Interim President, Robert Groves.
Good morning. Welcome to the Capitol Campus of Georgetown University. Over the coming years, you will see thousands of young people, 18 to 27 years old, living and working and studying in this neighborhood from early in the morning to late at night, 7 days a week. And in doing so, we have multiple goals. One is that we want to enrich the educational experiences of these young people. We want to let them integrate into the activities of the nation's capital. But we also want to serve you. We want to become a good neighbor, a better neighbor to the District of Columbia. We want to integrate into this community as much as we can, and so our giving you a venue for this event today is a symbol and a beginning of that. And I'm saying this because I want you to come to us with ideas, and we will reach out to you on how we can be a better neighbor to this community. I want to thank people who made this happen, Gerren and Ebony, who've made this happen. I want to give a shout out to Wally Malinik, who's been on the, stand up Wally, who's our law faculty, who's been on the downtown bid for many years, and thank him for his service. We want to do more, and we hope an event like this will stimulate the kind of interaction that we're seeking over time. So welcome to Georgetown. Welcome to this lovely auditorium. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.
There's the Washington, D.C. you think you know. Iconic landmarks and memorials. Then there's downtown D.C. But we're not your typical downtown. These streets have stories to tell. History is in our bones. This is where arts and culture come to life, where culinary treasures are around every corner, where iconic views are the backdrop for America's pulpit, where sports and entertainment collide, and where luxury retail is just steps from a planet dedicated to words. This is where memories are made. There's an undeniable energy, and we've got a groove all our own. This isn't just any downtown. This is the nation's downtown. We are Downtown DC.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Director of Marketing and Communications for the Downtown DC BID, Ebony Walton.
I want to exhale, and I want you to do the same. Can we begin with a collective breath? That's a question. I need a response. Can we begin with a collective breath?
Yes. Yes.
There's a shift in the atmosphere. Recently, many of us greet each other with anxiety, with fear, out of frustration, perhaps warranted due to the uncertainty of this climate. We turn on the news, there's something different every day. And many of us have staked our livelihoods on it. It's like our lives depended on it. But we can choose. We can choose to be in fear and anxiety, or we can choose peace. Why? It's my privilege. It's my right. I choose not to give up my peace. Listen, when you went to bed last night, did you know what was going to happen today? No one did. That's the beauty of the rising of each sunset. We don't know what's going to happen. We must not allow any situation nor circumstance to steal the gift of this present moment. When you arose with a gift. Every single person in this room, take a look around. You are sitting next to a miracle. Why? All of us survived the pandemic. A global catastrophe that no one could have imagined in their mind's eye. Did we lose some friends and family members? We did. Were we impacted? We were. But we are still here. We are survivors. We are overcomers. So we're going to do what we did during the pandemic and before the pandemic, because some of you in this room have gone through things that some of us could not imagine. We get up, we keep going. We get up, we keep going, and you can choose to get up with a smile on your face, or you can choose to be Scrooge all day long. And nobody likes a Scrooge. So I invite you to change your perspective. You can choose to turn on the news if you want to. I can choose to turn on the radio. I can choose to open the flurry of emails that flood my inbox. And I can also choose with what lens I choose to view all of those things. So we have a choice. What choice will you make? Listen. We've been down the road of fear. We've been down the road of anxiety. We've been down all those roads. Been there, bought the t-shirt, burned it, not going back. So we are going to move forward with hope, because with each new day, there is hope. There is hope. I see it in you. Some of you have done magnanimous things, and we all know the stories of transformation and revitalization that have happened in the depths of despair. So we're not going back, y'all. And listen, we're not going to solve downtown's economy in 1 hour. So we can choose. This is what I want you to do. Keep an open mind, keep an open heart, and breathe.
Gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Downtown DC BID President and CEO Gerren Price.
Right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, incredible remarks from Ebony and tough to follow, but I just want to challenge us for a moment just to stop and take a deep breath. So everybody do me a favor and breathe in when I say 3, and then we're going to let it out. 1, 2, 3. I needed that. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, but for the past few years, I've been a part of this group text thread with some of my BID colleagues from around the city and around the country. And as you can imagine, those text threads can get a little lively. We often have a lot of fun banter and exchanges, but it's a lot of shared insight, some words of encouragement, moments of celebration, and when the moment calls for it, it's a space for us to share relevant news links. Lately, as you might imagine, that text thread has been buzzing non-stop. It seems like every hour on the hour there's a new ding with some new headline. And with each ding, that pace of change, whether political, economic, social, feels like it's growing more dizzying by the day. And just the other morning, after a flurry of back-to-back-to-back headlines, one of my colleagues wrote back something that really stopped me cold in my tracks. Just one simple sentence, and I just haven't been able to shake it. They wrote, "It's becoming difficult to know where to focus." Let me say that again. It's becoming difficult to know where to focus. Now that hit me. It hit me hard. And it hit me hard because I've really been feeling that a little bit, especially in this first few months of this year. And if I had to guess, I would think that maybe some of us around this room might be feeling a little something like that too. Because with everything that 2024 brought us and with everything that's already been in the first few months of 2025, I even found myself struggling to put together these opening remarks. And my team jokes all the time, I can talk. So when I have trouble finding remarks, you know there's an issue. But it's not because there's nothing to say, but the reality is I just didn't know where to begin. How in the world do you start with a year that has started like this year? So I decided not to focus on how to start or where to begin, but instead I want to focus on how I want each and every one of you to feel when you walk out of this room today. So why? Because the reality is the world is heavy, and we know this. The challenges that we're facing are real, and we know this too. And cities just like ours are all under intense pressure in this moment. Yes, we're facing persistent headwinds. Economic forecasts hint at a recession. Office attendance continues to lag, and frankly, pre-pandemic norms feel like it's in the distant rearview mirror. Commercial properties and especially Class B buildings are struggling. Some are selling for way below assessed value, raising cause for alarm. And street-level retail in downtown remains a bit tough with a nearly 25% vacancy rate. These are all serious signals. And they do mirror what other major cities are facing. But I'm here to tell you today that that's not the whole story of downtown. Because here in downtown DC, big things are still happening. And in fact, when you look at the totality of them in 2024, major things happened. We had major investments that are helping to advance forward to keep our sports teams in downtown DC, anchoring our arena through 2050 and further solidifying our city as the global capital of the world. Let's go Caps. Can we give it up for the Caps last night, everybody? Incredible new restaurants and retail concepts continue to open, voting and showing with their confidence that they believe in this downtown and the future of this downtown. Tourism, museums, theaters, and events are thriving, proof that people want to be in downtown. And in fact, our relaunched Downtown DC Holiday Market drew more than 340,000 people in just 4 weeks this past winter, shattering previous attendance records. And I'd be remiss not to mention that universities are transforming empty office spaces into dynamic satellite campuses, reimagining downtown as a hub for learning and innovation, including what's happening right here at the Georgetown University Capitol campus. So thank you again to the Georgetown team for letting us be here today. We also saw our first office to residential conversion project open its doors in 2024, welcoming for the first time in a long time a whole new building full of people who will now call downtown their home. And thanks to major strategic investments by the city, we launched the Penn Quarter Chinatown Safety Team, a visible, proactive new layer of support on our streets to work in tandem with the Herculean efforts of the Metropolitan Police Department and other public safety partners. We are so grateful for the progress that's been made with respect to public safety. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is forward motion. But it's not without setbacks. But that progress is real, and it matters. And the State of Downtown report that we are releasing today captures all of this. It reflects a year full of progress and pain, hope and hard truths. And it makes it clear, while we haven't yet reached the tipping point to fully transform the downtown economy, we are building towards it. And we're doing it with focus, and we're doing it with a sense of urgency. And obviously, like many of you, probably all of us in this room, we are watching closely to see how the federal government's evolving relationship with the city will play out. But let's be real, it's a wild card. And it's one that could either accelerate or complicate our recovery. And that's why we're working lockstep with Mayor Muriel Bowser, the DC Council, and our federal partners to make sure that DC's voice is heard. Because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, change is inevitable. I say to my team all the time, one of my favorite quotes is that the only thing that remains the same is change. Those who adapt persevere, those who do not fade away. Change is inevitable, but decline is not. And our job is to meet this moment, not with nostalgia, but with imagination, with focus, with vision, and with shared fresh perspective. So, okay, back to the original question. What do I want you to feel when you walk out of this room today? I want you to feel a couple of things. One, grounded. I want you to feel grounded in the truth in the reality of the data and what the information that we've collected is telling us about downtown. We want you to feel optimistic, not because things are easy, but because we've proven before that we can do hard things. And I want you to feel committed. Committed to the idea that this downtown belongs to all of us. And all of us in this room get to shape the future. It's ours to shape and no one else's. I want you to leave this room believing firmly what I believe. Downtown DC is the most diverse, dynamic, and essential neighborhood in one of the most important cities in the world. Can we give a round of applause for that? Together, we want to keep showing what's possible, and we want to keep making big things happen. So with that, I want to welcome you to our 2025 State of Downtown Forum. Now, you're going to hear from many incredibly thoughtful voices today who are helping to shape the next chapter of Downtown DC, and you'll hear from our esteemed Mayor Muriel Bowser and other special guests. But to kick us off, I think there's no better person to help ground us in the data, the trends, and the story behind the numbers than someone who's been living and breathing that work every single day. I want you to please join me in welcoming with a rousing round of applause for our Director of Planning and Economic Development and the lead architect of this year's State of Downtown report, Mr. Mark Simpson.
Thank you, Gerren. Appreciate that. Good morning. Good morning. Gerren, thank you for that introduction, and I appreciate your balanced optimism. We want to be clear-eyed in this moment and to understand exactly what's going on around us, but at the same time, avoid the doom and gloom thinking that can inflect the headlines that we see in our news feeds. And on that point, I think we have a lot to celebrate, including the upcoming $800 million renovation of the Capital One Arena, which will kick off this summer and be complete in 2027. Yeah, let's hear it. The improvements inside and out will enhance the fan experience, both during, before, and after events. It will also enable the arena to host more events annually, and you'll hear more about that a little later during our next panel. Another point to celebrate is that crime is down across the board. We saw a 12% decline in total crimes in the BID and a more than 50% decline in violent crime over the last year. We can point to policies and public investments and thank our partners, the district government, for legislative actions. As an example, as you can see here, we received a Safe Commercial Corridors grant that helped the BID hire safety ambassadors. More eyes on the street make the neighborhood safer for everyone, and we're thrilled to see these investments pay off and manifest in the data. Our tourism sector. This is another bright spot. The data shows that visitation to our cultural and performing arts venues increased to over 3.8 million visits, which is more than 2024 and just shy of where we were pre-pandemic. And then for Capital One Arena, we saw over 2.2 million attendees, which is a 25% increase over where we were prior to the pandemic. Just tremendous growth. It's very exciting to see. And while we acknowledge these strengths and successes, we also need to be informed and clear-eyed about what's going on and the challenges that lie ahead. Gerren mentioned it earlier, we saw an increase in office transaction volumes, but nearly all of the sales were at a discount relative to their assessed values. So what does that mean? We tracked 32 building sales in the larger downtown area, as defined by the action plan, which includes areas of the Golden Triangle, Foggy Bottom, West End, and DuPont. And those 32 buildings had a combined assessed value of $4.1 billion. But what they actually sold for was $1.8 billion. So that's a 55% haircut relative to the assessed value. And if assessed values were automatically reset to the last sale price, that 44% would translate to $43 million drop in annual tax revenues. So that's more than $1 million less in revenue per building sold. The diminished tax base is going to lead to ongoing headwinds in the district budget, so we're very closely watching these trends. Additionally, everyone in this room should be concerned about the district's declining regional competitiveness and lagging post-pandemic job growth. DC's total employment, as you can see here, is dropped by 53,000 jobs in 2020. Since then, we've only gained back about half of the jobs. By contrast, look at what happened with Virginia. They lost about 20,000 jobs, and now they've surpassed that by 5 times since then. So we're already on our back heel even before the recent federal actions and reduction in force have manifested in the data. We're seeing a similar trend in apartment and condo housing production, which we in the industry call multifamily starts. In 2019, the district was producing about 5,000 units, so here we go. So in 2019, so the overall region, this is the metro area, produced about 9,500 units. The district caught about just over half of them. So we were starting 5,100 new units. And that's on pace historically with where we've been, somewhere between 5,000 to 7,000 units every year for the past 10 years. By contrast, look what happened in 2024. I keep losing myself here. The unit produced fewer units, the region produced fewer units, but look what happened to Virginia. Virginia more than doubled their capture from 29% of the total growth to 69% and increased by about 2,000 units the number of multifamily apartments while the overall region's declining in growth. These are warning lights on the dashboard because the district is capturing a smaller share of a shrinking pie, and lack of housing growth exacerbates affordability challenges across the board. Finally, it'd be negligent not to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is the federal government and its footprint. Historically, the feds have been a bedrock for downtown, but that solid footing may feel more like quicksand these days. It's too early to tell in the data exactly what's happening. So what we can do is look to where we were in January just to understand what's at stake as these changes are happening. So as you can see behind me here, I'll find the right side. The feds own or lease about 21 million square feet of office inventory in the downtown bid, and that represents just about a quarter of our total office stock. Federal employees number about 66,000, and that represents about a third of our total workforce. So clearly, whatever happens with the federal government is going to have implications for our neighborhood here in DC. Downtown also captures a huge share of the regional federal employment. And so where goes downtown, where goes the region, and then vice versa. The next graph here will show, to understand the size and scope of the regional employment, these 100 people represent, on the screen here, represent the 377,000 federal workers in the DMV region. Of the 100, 51% work in DC, while the remainder work in Northern Virginia and Maryland. And of the 51 DC workers in white, nearly a third work downtown. And so what that translates to is just under 20% of all federal workers in the region work and call downtown home. So whatever happens with the federal government, both in terms of employment and its real estate holdings, is going to have huge implications for not only our neighborhood, but our city and our region. And we will learn more about that during our panel coming up later. So Gerren, I think with that, I'm going to turn it back to you. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to geek out over the data a little bit. I also want to thank the research team, the graphic design team, and our marketing team for putting together a phenomenal looking report. I hope you all enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Thank you.
And now, for your viewing pleasure, messages from Monumental Sports and Entertainment and City Center, DC.
Journey to a world of self-expression. Take the fast track to an authentic you. Feel tingly all over with anticipation. No tickets required. Welcome to a destination that celebrates you. Your individual style. Your many different tastes. Even the way you roll. You bring the excitement to a place where luxury is a feeling you get by being who you want to be. Where creativity is applauded. New experiences meet daring fashion and delicious dining. And arriving is just part of the fun.
What if our city never settled? What would it make? We're about to find out. Again. Washington is not a city suspended in time. It's more than monuments. It's momentum. We are fast movers, first movers, innovators, groundbreakers. Not just the status quo. We're setting precedents. All roads lead here Because this is where tomorrow's history happens today. We are DC's beating heart, the pulse of this place. We are the catalyst reshaping the district once again. This isn't where we display history. This is where we make it. This is where we turn the past inside out to create the future. This is where monuments meet momentum. The new Capital One Arena.
From Georgetown University in the heart of the district, it's a late night in downtown DC with Gerren Price. Today, join Gerren and his guests, Crispus from Monumental Sports and Entertainment, Tracy from the Brookings Institution, Anoop Rusky from Quadrum Global, and three-time Mayor Muriel Bowser. And now, here is Gerren Price.
Good evening, although it's morning. We are switching up the format a little bit here. We wanted to make this year's forum a little bit more conversational. So we encourage you to lean in and enjoy Late Night in Downtown DC, our very own interview style State of Downtown Forum. We have some amazing guests who are going to be here today, but it's my pleasure to introduce our very, very first guest. And can I just quickly shout out, I love this setup. My goodness, how did they transform this? I was in the back and didn't see this. I love the couches and all of this. We have all the makings of a late night show except for Questlove and the Roots Band. So next year team, we will have that in place. But let's get things started. I'm so excited to be here today, and I want to introduce our first guest, who's no stranger to big moments in downtown DC, and in fact, monumental moments in downtown DC. He's leading the charge at one of the biggest energies of excitement and economic impact in our downtown. Please give it up for someone who has playoff fever, working on a 3-year renovation project to help make the downtown DC shine through 2050. Please give it up for Mr. Crispus Gordon, Vice President of Intergovernmental Affairs at Monumental Sports and Entertainment. All right. Crispus, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Good, good, good. I'm telling you, we have been so excited to jump into this year's forum, and we have so many questions that we want to ask you. But first, we got to get down to business and ask the things that the people really need to know. We had an amazing game last night. How are we celebrating when the Caps finally win the Stanley Cup again?
Well, you know, both you and I are married to Jamaican Americans, so we'll celebrate with some Appleton, some good rum.
I love it. I love it. There will be a dance party in the streets and replete with all of the drinks. I love it. So, Crispus, obviously, you are kicking off on behalf of Monumental Sports and Entertainment a massive multi-phase renovation of the Capital One Arena. And we want to understand, as we're moving into 2025 and looking back at the impact of last year, you know, fast forward to where we'll be 3 years from now, what will be the look and feel for fans and for visitors and for folks in the community?
Oh, it'll be amazing. So the first things first, one of the things we're really excited about is having more restrooms. And so we want to ensure that our fans don't miss any of the action. And so right now, if you go to a Caps game, if you were there last night, thank you very much for helping pay my salary. But if you were there last night, you noticed that at the end of the first period, everyone rushes to like use the bathroom, and you're standing there, you're trying to make a decision, bathroom or concessions, and you're there for 20 minutes, and you want to come back out and catch the begin the second period, but then you're running late. We want to ensure that time moves very quickly, and so you have more restrooms. You also have televisions in the concourse area, so you don't feel as though when you leave your seat you're going to miss Ovechkin score a goal or miss the Wizards get a buzzer beater or something like that. So that's our number one thing. It sounds very like corny, but that's really true. The second thing is the actual concession portion. We're working with our vendors to have more local vendors in the arena 3 years from now. So we're doing that negotiation now. If you're in DC, we want you to eat food that's from DC, and that's part of the entire fan experience. The third thing is no matter where you are, fourth level, second level, first level, we want to ensure that you are connected to the game. So when you come into Capital One Arena right now, you notice there's like a wall when you get to the concourse. We're going to take that down, so you're actually on the concourse. You can see down on the ice or see down on the court.
That is fantastic. Can we talk a little bit about the specifics of the project timeline? And I want to commend you all. You've done a tremendous job really sharing information with the community around what people can expect, particularly over these next 3 years. But can you say a little bit more? What's the construction timeline? What are the things that will look like these next couple of summers?
Sure. So we're already doing construction now. You don't see it, but we're doing most of our back of the house work. And so as soon as the cap season is over with in June at the end of the Stanley Cup, then we'll actually shut the arena down for more front of the house construction. That'll take place over the course of 3 years. And so after 3 years, we'll have a brand new Capital One Arena for everyone to come and experience.
Absolutely. Can you say a little bit about just, we all know how important the arena is to the community. There aren't many major cities that have downtown arenas. Can you say a little bit about just what is the impact to downtown? I think we see it and feel it and have documented it in the report. How do you think about sort of the economic impact that the arena has on downtown as a whole?
Let me tell you, when I first moved to DC about 15 years ago, what I loved about the arena was coming to a Wizards game or a Capitals game. I didn't have a car. I was like, wait, I could just take the train, to a sporting event or a train to a concert. This is amazing. This is like a godsend. And you see restaurants relocate downtown. You see bars, the retail industry. You realize we're all part of this economic apparatus in DC that makes DC tick. And one can't survive without the other. We talk about how Capitol Arena is so important to downtown. The retail is so important to downtown. The restaurants are important to downtown. The bars are important to downtown. Everything is so connected. Even our cultural institutions are important. It makes up the entire fabric, and we're so connected to each other, and we make each other successful.
You all are such an important part of that ecosystem, and you've been appreciated. We're so excited about the future that's ahead. What would you say you're most excited about at Monumental Sports right now? What is the thing that is just making you feel like the future's bright?
Usually when you get a new arena, you get a NBA All-Star game and an NHL All-Star game. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Good economic development. There you go.
Crispus, your lips to God's ears. We're going to call that now and speak it into existence. We have a Stanley Cup coming, All-Star games coming. We're very excited about that, so thank you. Is there anything else you want to say about just the overall commitment that Monumental has to downtown and just the work that you all have been doing with the city? What's sort of your final take on how things have been going and what folks can expect?
Sure. So our lease runs to 2050, so I joke with you all the time that hopefully I'm not in this position renegotiating this in 2050. I hope to be in Jamaica and read about it in the Montego Bay News. And so we did that intentionally because we wanted to show the District of Columbia, show the fans, show everyone here that we are committed to DC. DC is our home. We take it very, very, very seriously. And we also want to send a message to the business community that you can make your investments in downtown because you're going to have an anchor that's going to be there. And working with the city, working with Mayor Bowser, working with Deputy Mayor Albert, I see Councilmember Pinto out here represents Ward 2, former Councilmember Evans, who was our predecessor, used to represent Ward 2, have been so integral in ensuring that DC is a sports capital, and we want to be a part of that. We are a part of that, and we enjoy it.
Crispus, that's fantastic. Can we give it up one more time for Crispus Gordon? Thank you to Monumental Sports and all the work that's happening. Now we're going to add one more guest to the mix, so Crispus, don't go anywhere. Right. It is my esteemed pleasure to introduce our very next guest. Please give a warm welcome to Tracy Hadden Lowe of the Brookings Institute. Tracy, thanks for joining our couch this morning, I don't know.
Where was the Spirit Tunnel? I was looking for that.
Next year, we're adding that to the list too, next to Questlove. That's fantastic.
Perfect.
We're so excited to have you here. So for those who don't know Tracy, and I imagine everybody does, Tracy is one of the leading voices in placemaking and urban transformation. And in your capacity at the Brookings Institute, you've just been such a dynamic voice and force for change and for study. And so we're so excited to have you here today. I wanted to just open up by asking you, with you being such a clear voice for downtown reinvention, I want to kind of first start a little bit small and ask you, what are the trends that you're seeing, particularly with respect to office to residential conversions and retail in downtown DC? What do you feel is working? What's not working?
I'm so excited to talk about both these things. Okay, office to residential. I just put out a huge set of 6 case studies looking at 6 markets across the United States. Is office to resi going to be a real thing? And if so, what are the market conditions and policies that actually enable it to happen? It is a real thing, as it turns out. It's organically happening everywhere, including here in DC. But there are a lot of caveats to that, right? That residential demand has to be very strong. That the remaining value in existing offices, even if they're partially vacant, is a barrier to conversion.
Absolutely.
And that conversions have their own set of complexities in terms of why they might be difficult to do. And so it's important for the regulatory environment to be as easy as possible in order to get out of the way and allow office asset holders to do the right thing.
Tracy, let's dig into that a little bit more, and I hope it's okay. I've sort of asked you before, is it okay if we touch on hard stuff this morning? Can I ask you the things?
Let's get into it.
Okay, we're gonna go there. You heard it here, we're gonna go there. Tell me about when you say the regulatory environment needs to change or needs to be as easy as possible. What does that mean? What are the barriers? How can we move towards beginning to eliminate some of that?
Okay. A lot of the office to residential conversions that have happened in the past in other cities in the United States that have helped disposition super underperforming office product and add new life to downtown have not been the luxury apartments and condos that everyone is envisioning. What if we took shabby offices and converted them into weird, shabby apartments? I know, it doesn't sound fun, but we need to really take a step back in the building code and look at what's actually truly necessary for health and safety, which are important, which are paramount, which will never be compromised, which are not going anywhere. But then we need to let go of the rest of our classist assumptions about the ways that people want or need to live. We need to legalize co-living. We need to legalize bedrooms that don't even have the weird little light sharing window, that are just like a little den nook. We need to get out of the way of all of these aesthetic and moral preferences about how people live and just focus on the health and safety part. Stop requiring 2 staircases. We have to let go of all of that other stuff so that we can make it as flexible as possible so that the change that you were talking about can happen. That takes flexibility.
Tracy, I love that. Flexibility is what's needed more than anything, and you've really challenged us to think about some really broad things, and I want to zoom out even further. As you're looking at the big picture for downtowns across the country and really across the world, would you say we're at an inflection point? Have we reached the bottom, right? Like, where are we now, and what are you seeing in terms of relative to other spaces?
I do think that cities around the world reached an inflection point during COVID, but I worry that it's different for DC, right? Because of all of the data that Mark was sharing about how overexposed our downtown is to federal workforce trends. Because the federal government has not been nimble and flexible in how it has managed its footprint, we are behind where other cities are in evolution and adaptation, right? You can see it just when you look around at the architecture. A whole bunch of this is just like, wow, yikes, could use a refresh. Love what is coming to Capital One Arena.
Because, perfect example,
right? Because anyone who's been there knows, like, first best time to do that 10 years ago, second best time now.
Yes.
But I'm glad we're getting to it.
Yes.
But there's a lot of stuff around DC that it's like, yikes, probably should have gotten to that 20 years ago. And now we're going to get to it, I guess, but in like the meanest and least efficient way possible.
Tracy, you touched on you've said a lot, Tracy, wow. This is why we wanted you as one of our guests. I want to dig a little deeper into this federal dynamic that makes DC unique, and I think it's no secret as we're looking ahead at at 2025 as much as we're looking back at 2024. I said in the beginning, the federal government relationship is a bit of a wild card. There's a lot to be determined. What do you think, obviously we're always going to have to navigate this dynamic, but what do you think it's going to take to build a future for downtown and for DC that is resilient to any of that sort of push and pull on the federal level?
Two things. First, all of the great stuff that you were talking about, people going to games, people eating at restaurants, et cetera, those people need to have jobs. And so DC needs to diversify, the whole region needs to diversify its economy and grow the promising innovation clusters that our economic development professionals have already identified, and that we now have talent available to innovate and start new enterprises around. We need people to be moving their companies here to snatch up this talent before we lose it. And we also need to empower that talent who maybe historically is a little more cautious, prefers stability, is patriotic. We need to help them discover their inner entrepreneur. And not give up on this region, because they have so much to offer, and the jobs that they create are what's going to drive the rest of this economic activity. But then we also need the federal government to be smarter about how it repositions its real estate assets. It does need to happen, but think about how the federal government went about BRAC, right, when they were closing a lot of military bases. They didn't just shut down the bases, light them on fire, and then tweet like, sorry suckers, that's not what happened, right? There was a process to assess the business need for each facility, to achieve synergies, combine, consolidate things, and then there was a plan in order to prepare communities for what would come next, and to reposition the communities that had held up these assets for so many years. We need BRAC for offices.
I love that, BRAC for offices. Crispus, I think that's a great idea. I hope folks in the room are hearing this and are thinking about what that could look like. I want to ask you one last piece here before we bring in our next guest. And you've mentioned plans. I want to ask you, we had a conversation. You said, look, it's the downtown plan is important, but it has to be bigger than that. It takes regional strategy. If we're looking at that and what it actually looks like, who needs to be at the table? What's involved? How do we move forward with a regional strategy?
I think our friends at the Board of Trade and the Greater Washington Partnership already know the answer to that question, right? And the challenge is, how can we all gather, can we find a way to gather all around one table, like without designating in advance who's gonna get the credit for getting us there, right? Like we know who needs to be talking to each other and who needs to be working on this stuff. The resources are there. What we need is a sense of urgency and a sense of humbleness to come together and say that we're creating a legacy for our kids and for our region, not just for ourselves.
Yeah.
Tracy, I love that. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to add one more guest here to the couch, but will you stick around for a little bit and we'll have a couple fun questions for everybody?
Let's mix it up.
Thanks for that GWB plug. I had to go back to work and tell Ted, hey,
that's right.
Talked about the partnership.
Time to show up.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, let's take a moment to add one more guest to the table, and I want to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and it's been really impactful here in downtown, and that's tourism and travel. Specifically, when people come to DC, they look for a place to stay that's stylish and that's buzzing with energy and that's close to everything that they want to do. Our next guest has been helping to lead the charge in hospitality and investment through Quadrum Global, and they just launched something very special here in 2024 in downtown DC on our East End, and that is the Arlo Hotel. Please welcome Anoop Rusky. Hello. Anoop, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Great, thanks for having me.
Good. So excited that you're here. Obviously, tourism, as we mentioned before, really doing quite well in the overall downtown ecosystem. And a lot of that is driven by hotels and some of the folks who are coming to visit and staying in our hotels. Can you just first tell us a little bit more about the Arlo and the project that you all launched, and what makes it so exciting, and why should everybody go check it out?
Yeah, so Quadrum Global, we're a real estate investment management company, and we started Arlo Hotels back in 2016 in New York City. And now we've grown to 7 hotels in 4 cities, with the Arlo, Washington, D.C. being our newest property, which opened in November of last year. And just in terms of our hotel, we cater to, we like to be in urban locations, and typically, our travelers or our guests typically don't need to spend a lot of time in the room. So we want our guests to explore the city that they're in, and also really take advantage of all the facilities and activities that are happening at the hotel. So typically our hotels are a little smaller than the typical hotel room, than the typical Marriott or Hyatt hotel room, but we're able to pass that on in terms of having a more approachable price, and but we don't sacrifice in terms of design and guest experience. We have very elevated design, really personal touch when it comes to experience, and really great activated third-party public spaces. And what's really important to us is, in terms of our brand, is really community and discovery. So we really like to become an integral part of the community. We invite locals to come experience our hotel and to interact with our guests, and vice versa. So please come check out our restaurant Orel's, which is a great Spanish restaurant helmed by Chef Pepe Moncayo. We have a really wonderful rooftop bar with views of the Capitol building and the Washington Monument. And we also bring in lots of local partners to do various events and activations at the hotel. And we like to really heighten the guest experience by little touches, whether it's our signature scent in our lobby, in-room yoga classes done by Aloe, really fun rooftop dining and rooftop experiences, as well as some cool activations. One that we're really particularly proud of is called our living room gallery, where we invite local artists to come display their work on a rotating basis. So we'll have an event where our hotel guests and people from the community can come learn more about the art and get to meet the artist, and it's a great way to get really world-class art into our hotels. So at the end of the day, I think what we're able to provide is a much more authentic local experience than some of the other hotels. We really want our guests to experience the city, not just visit it.
Anoop, I love that so much. You had me at this signature
Come on, signature scent.
Signature scent caught me, Tracy. You have to, and he's not lying. You walk in, you immediately can feel it when you walk in.
No, you got me with rooftop bar too.
Yeah. So we actually, the scent is so popular that we now sell it in room sprays and candles and diffusers.
Oh, wow.
So at all our hotels. So it's very popular.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. Well, I want to ask you a little bit of a deeper question here, as I'm thinking about sort of the amazing experience you all brought and how you transformed this part of downtown, with your investment. Quadra makes investments across the country. What made you choose downtown DC, and why in this moment?
Yeah, so we initially acquired the site where the Arlo Hotel sits back in April of 2019. So a slightly different world than where we are today. But we obviously were when we were expanding outside of New York, DC was always on our radar. From a data standpoint, we always look at the past and see how hotels have performed, and DC has always been a very strong hotel market with steady growth. We like to be, just as a hotel company and as a real estate investor, we want to be in densely populated, walkable, transit-oriented cities, and that is Washington, D.C. And there's obviously, the federal government does play an outsized role here, but there is a pretty diversified and dynamic economy. So that's what really led us to DC in general. In terms of downtown, I think and this site in specific, I think there were 2 things that really excited us. One is just how central it is and how we can just pull from so many different demand drivers, whether it's the Capital One Arena, which brings a lot of foot traffic and entertainment 100%. Close by, the convention center, all the various federal agencies, Georgetown University, which we're very excited about being a 5-minute walk from our hotel. There was just a lot of, just being on this whole path of development towards the east side of DC really excited us. And then I think specifically about the site, Part of the site had the Harrison building, which is also known as the Canterbury building. It was the oldest, like, a multi-family purposefully built building in DC. Wow. That had been vacant for over 20 years. So we had this real opportunity to refurbish and restore this very beautiful building and just preserve the history within the district. And it's absolutely incredible architecture with these beautiful brick vaulted ceilings, which something you could never build in today's. So it was just a really unique opportunity to be able to preserve something and build something right in the heart of DC.
I hope you got some tax credits too.
We didn't, but I should have talked to you.
Right, yeah. You get some what for your next project? You know who to talk to. No, that is fantastic. I have to say, this part of downtown, the sort of eastern end of downtown in a way, it doesn't always get the attention that it probably deserves. But as I was standing at your opening event and just looking around, and you have this amazing proximity to the arena, the National Building Museum, Georgetown's campus, all of these amazing assets right in the views of the Capitol. I mean, it's such an amazing space. And so what you all have brought in terms of the transformation, is really, I think it's going to be tremendously successful. And it's just a part of that story of the future of downtown. So we are so appreciative of that. I want to ask you about just sort of broadly thinking about tourism, travel, and hotels. What our data is showing is that in 24, that travel and sort of hotel stays have kind of gone up almost to where it was pre-pandemic level, if not beyond in some categories. Yeah. What do you think is driving that? And do you think it's going to hold given some of the changes and what we're seeing in terms of trends, around international travel to the States and whatnot?
Yeah, well, I think, obviously we've been in a recovery mode since the end of the pandemic. And so hospitality obviously does well when the overall economy does well. So we've generally been in a recovery mode and I think in a growth mode since the end of the pandemic. But I do think there's just been a lot of pent-up demand for travel generally, whether it was a leisure traveler or a business traveler. I think there was a lot of pent-up demand coming out of the pandemic to travel. So I think that has obviously helped out the industry. And I think people are now prioritizing experiences such as travel and dining out as opposed to material goods. So I think that has really helped us, has helped the industry overall. And so we are seeing that, one industry term that we look at is RevPAR, revenue per available room. And RevPAR in DC and in many other cities across the country are now at or exceeding where they were previously in 2019. I guess one caveat being, at least in DC right now, the RevPAR has increased over 2019, but overall occupancy and demand is still not where it once was. So that is something we're watching very closely. And obviously there is a lot of volatility right now with the political environment in terms of, we're starting to hear that international tourism is probably going to be impacted. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out in the coming year.
One of the good things about the playoffs is when we play teams that are farther away, like all of my hotel friends are very happy when we make the playoffs and we don't play the Flyers or we don't play the Rangers because they'll just take the train in and go back. Yeah. But when we play a team like Montreal, we play a team like Detroit, they have to fly in, stay overnight, and then go back. So my hotel friends are very excited about that. It'd be interesting to see later on.
Yeah, and I think when I was speaking to our sales team, I know we just booked a large group with ESPN related to the playoffs. So, I mean, it was a really great piece of business that we were able to get, and being so close, and probably because we were so close to the arena.
That is fantastic. Well, I want to bring everybody back into this conversation a little bit, and I want to thank you. I think all three of you, as soon as we sent you the State of Downtown report, and I believe we gave you like a secret embargoed version about a week ago, all of you jumped right in, read it, and have obviously read it from cover to cover. So we're not going to quiz you on it, although I could. I'm ready to quiz you. I want to ask you a question. Out of the report, for each of you, what's like one thing that you would say resonates with you or that sort of stands out to you as a story that we should be telling overall?
I'll go first. The retail piece I thought was really striking. So, we were hearing from Mark about how the overall retail vacancy rate is really high and a lot of places have closed. And that sounds super bad, right, when you just put a top line like that. But I was really struck by the enormous number of new places that have opened as well. And that strikes me as the continuation of a bunch of trends that Anoop was referring to too, right? The transition from a consumption economy to an experience economy, right? That there are bigger disruptions than what's happening in the government right now, or even the pandemic, right? There's a bigger macro evolution that's happening that retail has to respond to, and a lot of the old business models even if none of that other stuff had ever happened, they weren't going to be viable anymore. And so it feels sad when places that we have loved and gotten to know close, but when was the last time you went there though? And it's also exciting when new things open because there's a new experience to try. And so I think that we need to have a talk with ourselves about our own feelings and to balance sad and happy and to plug into tell me more about this rooftop. And will the pool be part of the programming?
Right, that's right. No, thank you. Such an astute point around the retail. Can I ask you just a quick follow-up on that? I mean, obviously we've had some really, big closings, big openings, right? And we have a few announcements even in this year. Barnes & Noble is making a return to Metro Center, and we have the
Nature
Mango.
is healing.
Yes. There you go. We've had new retail clothing stores that have opened on F Street, so we're seeing a bit of a shopping retail resurgence in our F Street corridor. What do you think is driving some of that stuff? And is it everything old, new again? Are we going to see more of the experience stuff? What's sort of your forecast for the retail outlook?
Okay, so a lot of this, frankly, is about management, okay? And so this is on commercial real estate as a sector and also, and tenants and how they're running their businesses, right? Take the case of Barnes & Noble. It's not like people were reading books, then they stopped reading books, now they've started again. That is not what happened. So why did Barnes & Noble have to go on a journey, right? That's about how that's managed, right? The demand has always been there. And what I think commercial real estate is struggling with in this moment is that the way that, buildings are financed, landlords can't offer retailers the flexibility that they need in this moment of tremendous change and innovation to get in on the ground floor, literally, have some time to tool their business model, a runway for their market. Their market needs to find them now, okay? Downtown isn't just dumping their market in their lap anymore. So they need a little bit of time. They need profit-sharing leases, right, where risk and reward are spread differently between the tenant. But the city also needs to change the way they do business. We need to make it easier to just get a UNO and try something without spending $1 bajillion on TI to make everything perfect and get every inspector to agree. No one's ever gonna all agree ever again. That's over. So we need to just pop it up.
No agreement, I got
it. Be more flexible, try something out, and just get enough people to agree to get it going on.
Tracy, I love it. It's like the revolution of retail starts today because you've spoken into existence. I love it. Crispus, I want to bring you in here. What sort of from this report has stood out to you, or is it a theme or thread that you feel like this needs to be amplified and we should all be singing this gospel?
Public safety. And the numbers don't lie. And it's a good story to tell the decline in crime in downtown. It's very easy for us to get on the internet and click on something and say, oh my gosh, like it's really, really bad. And we have to acknowledge at some point there were challenges that we experienced, but when you actually look at it from a larger level, every urban environment post-2020 was experiencing the same exact challenges. And I think that the city council, DC council rather, approached that, understanding it, and said we have to do something about it. So I give credit to Chief Smith Credit to Councilmember Pinto, credit to the mayor for really addressing this issue head on. And we actually look at the raw numbers themselves, not a perception, not how you feel, not what someone told you. The actual numbers themselves show that crime in downtown DC has decreased.
No, I love that. I mean, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, it really shows that it's actually gone down, and on a per person, per experience level, if you drill down into it, it really shows pretty remarkable change. I guess the question I would follow up with is, do you feel, from the perspective of the fans and folks who are coming to the arena, is perception still a challenge? Are we still dealing with any of those sort of past experiences where people have said, oh, downtown isn't safe, and is it impacting sort of the bottom line? And if it is, how do we overcome that?
I think we're always having a difficulty pushing up against a narrative you may find out in the ether that maybe someone says and it just gets some traction and doesn't necessarily match up with the boots on the ground. I think when someone actually has the experience of coming to the arena, they're like, oh, this is pretty dope. Right? I took the train in from Virginia, Silver Line, or I took a ride share down to the arena, and I went to Rocket Bar, which somehow remains open. Or I went to Arlo, and
the demand for dives will never die.
That's right. We are sustaining Rocket Bar over there. And when people actually have that experience, they realize that whatever they heard was just 4 or 5 person hearsay. And so we're always pushing against that battle. We push against it. You all are pushing against it. But I think with that particular story in the report, if that narrative is pushed out, this is a place not just for fans, not just to eat and drink. It's also a family-centered, family-friendly place. We can really push that out.
Absolutely. Tracy and Anoop, you look like you want to jump in on the safety conversation. So I want to go there. Is there anything you want to add there with safety?
Well, first, I think the bid needs their flowers because, getting that reduction in crime, a lot of that is actually about increasing the ambassador presence. And when people say, ooh, I don't feel safe, often they just mean like it was dirty or I smelled weed. And, we're in a, but it's real. It's real. Like, we're in a moment of generational transition where I'm exactly old enough that every time I go out, I'm like, I don't want to smell that. It's real, and I will never get used to the fact that, frankly, times have just changed, and I think this perception versus reality thing is really real, but also we're just kind of re-baselining what clean and safe means, and we're dealing with a fracturing of the visitor experience in which people just want really different things that don't overlap as much anymore. And that's why the arena retooling and so many of the storefront businesses that serve downtown retooling is important, because people will feel comfortable when they know their niche is there for them.
Tracy, I love that. It's so important. Anoop, I feel like part of the battle of just drawing more people to downtown and having more, you feel safer when there's numbers, right? When there's people around you. You all have brought a lot of that to the East End with the Arlo Hotel and just the tremendous ground level retail activation and some of the other public spaces you're doing. Anything you'd add to the safety conversation here?
No, I mean, I think obviously safety is critically important for tourism, for tourism and for the hotels to be successful. So I think it's obviously, I was surprised to see that trend, actually. It was very encouraging to see that trend in the report. And then, I think that's what I have to say. But in terms of even just having the foot traffic, I think that's really important. We have Capitol Crossing across the street, which has become a destination. Having the arena, I think there's safety in numbers, I guess, is what I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else that resonated with you in the report, or a theme that sort of raised to you?
I mean, I guess, I'm based in New York, so I don't live here day to day. So obviously seeing the headlines reading about the headlines about, government jobs, seeing the high vacancy rate, you'd think there's a lot of headwinds, but what I took away was there's a lot of really positive developments happening in downtown, whether it's the hockey arena, whether it's a lot of the universities moving into the neighborhood. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Absolutely. Well, I got to say, I really appreciate the three of you. Thank you so much for being a part of this forum and of our session today. It's been really helpful hearing all of your perspective. Can we give them a big round of applause and just thank them for their time and input here? Thank you. Thank you so much.
I got it for you. There you go.
Live TV, it happens. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Is this thing on? Okay, great. We're back in business. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. Really excited. Thank you again to our guest panelists. We really appreciate you. But now we have a very special guest who is going to share some additional insights about the future reimagining of downtown and just some of the big picture elements that we can expect as the city continues to navigate all that is ahead. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our very special guest, Mayor Muriel Bowser. Mayor Bowser, welcome. You missed my complete mishap with my microphone going off, but I think I'm back in business now. Certainly appreciate you. Can everybody hear us okay?
Hello? Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, Mayor Bowser, first I will say it has just been an absolute pleasure being able to work alongside you and all that you have done, for downtown and for the city, and especially just meeting the needs that we have in this moment. So I just want to thank you for your service and for your diligence to the city.
Thank you.
And I just want to start by saying welcome to our Downtown DC Forum. And I just want to give you an opportunity to say, what's on your mind right now with respect to all the things happening in downtown and what's keeping you up at night?
Oh, wow. Well, welcome and good morning, everybody. I don't even know if I could tell you everything that's on my mind or the things that keep me up at night, but I will say this, and you've heard me say this before. I remain very optimistic about the downtown, very bullish about the future of the District of Columbia, and I can say that because we have laid out a plan. We've delivered on the plan. We continue to have people come forward with ideas. We continue to attract partners and continue to make investments. And that's how any city, every city grows and builds back. But it is important that we don't face our future or even our present with ideas that are business as usual. We have to think about how we are intentional about shifting our economy, continuing to make investments in those things that help us grow and get to the other side. And that's how I have my team focused.
I love that focus on growth economy and investment. Are you able to say a little bit more about just how does the city begin to make those kinds of investments? What does it look like, in terms of the decisions that need to be made to propel downtown and the city forward?
Well, I think we have to, and sometimes when we get tough headlines and everything seems like there's chaos around us, all of that can make us kind of stall or be paralyzed in how we're thinking. And I think each of us in our respective spaces needs to think about what we're going to do for the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 12 months. What is our plan to get to next year? And I just look at the problem that we have to solve. For the district, if the CFO's estimates hold for the next 4 years, within the next 4 years, we have to replace the economic activity of 40,000 employed DC residents. So we know what those numbers are. We know who those people are, and we want them to stay in the district. We want them to get new jobs in the district. We want them to go to district universities, buy DC houses, put their kids in DC schools. But as a municipality, we have to replace the economic activity of 40,000 people. And we know the things that have helped the renaissance of the district, and those are investments in kids and family schools.
Absolutely.
Investments in public safety, clean and safe activities, and investments in making sure that we grow our city. So when you ask me how I will prioritize those things, we will look to our budget for 26, which we're excited about, and we look forward to being able to give it to the council very soon. But in that budget, even though we're talking about, in some ways, having to deal with $1 billion less over 4 years or $300 million less, you will continue to see bold investments in how we grow.
Mayor Bowser, absolutely love that. Thank you so much. We also know how important, as we think about downtown, the Gallery Place Chinatown community, it's a hub for culture, for nightlife, for entertainment, for sports, and for so much more. It's a little over a year ago that we reached a deal with Monumental Sports to keep our teams here in DC and to invest in a transformed Capital One Arena to anchor the neighborhood and drive growth for the surrounding area. I want to ask you, why was that investment so important? Why was it so important to support the Gallery Place Chinatown community? And why do you see sports and entertainment as such a potential bright spot for the city?
Well, we have to look at what sports and entertainment has done for the city. Even starting here at Gallery Place, how Abe Poland made a big bet, Gallery Place, and a huge personal investment. The district also made a lot of investment. We have to look at what Nats Park has done for the Capitol Riverfront area, where the district made a huge, some people forget this, let me remind you, the district made a $600 million investment.
That's right.
And what year was that? Like 2005, 2006? You know what that is in today's dollars? It's well over $1 billion. Right. But what has been the payoff? It's been amazing. We have a whole new neighborhood. Similarly, Audi Field at Buzzard Point, there was no housing, no retail, no sports, no people living there, no restaurants, and now we have all of that. And so the sports economy, sometimes it gets minimized to like fun and games. But it's dollars and cents. It attracts people who pay taxes, and it attracts other investment. So we know the story of this arena at Cap One and Chinatown and Gallery Place. And these are our teams. These are Washington sports teams, and everybody knows, I think Washington sports teams should play in Washington. Right. And not only that, they've been very successful here. Extremely successful. And so when we were going through these kind of discussions around the arena, it was very clear, and I should make clear that Ted Leonsis has been a wonderful neighbor. Monumental Sports is an important company in our city, in our region, and not just in sports and education and supporting local causes, including hospitals and our university. So they're a great partner, and we wanted them to stay, and we had the ability to invest with them, and that's what we did. And so now we own the arena. It's now our arena, and Monumental continues to invest in it, and we hope bring home some championships there. And it turns out we're on a run, right? And so
Looks
maybe
like
the Caps
happen.
will bring it home.
Love that. Mayor Bowers, thank you so much. Yes. So I do want to lean in. I know I prefaced earlier and said that we have some questions that might be a little bit like tough questions in a way. But DC, what's not tough or unique is that we've always had to deal with striking a balance between local affairs in the local city and then, the nation, federal side. How do you see that dynamic playing out right now as we're shifting in a national climate? And, where do you see the opportunities for partnership while also protecting our local priorities?
Well, I see, number one, any issues with the district's balance with the federal government, and I want to be clear about this, because this isn't, I think oftentimes it's cast as a political point or ideological point, but I think that we're seeing the business implications of not having statehood.
Yes.
And the only way that this interference is rectified is when the tax-paying citizens of Washington, D.C. are full Americans. And we only become full Americans with statehood.
I think that deserves a round of applause. Absolutely.
So the political and the Democratic, the small d Democratic problem is that we pay taxes, but we're not represented with a voting member of Congress or 2 senators. The business problem is we literally have a balanced budget, unlike our federal partners. We literally every year for 4 years balance our spending priorities with our revenues, and we calibrate it. We literally do that. We are literally balanced, yet we're talking about a summer of forced cuts while we have money sitting in the bank. So those are the business implications, and it affects everything. It affects how investors make decisions about the district. It affects our ability to continue the services that keep us clean and safe. So it affects everything. And so we know that we will continue to work on rectifying that in the Congress, but we will keep our eyes focused as well on what it means to be full American citizens with voting representation in the Congress, because that's going to be critically important. Having said that, we're special in another way. The flip side of that problem is that we are unique in the American system. We will always have a different relationship than any other city or state with the White House and with the Congress. I've done it for 10 years, so I've worked with 3 presidents in every iteration of leadership at the Congress, and each time we present ourselves in the same way. This is who we are, this is what we do, this is how you can help, and please stay out of our business. So that's usually how it goes. And there are various levels of cooperation and such. So we'll keep that going.
Well, Mayor Bowser, thank you so much. I think I speak on behalf of everybody when we say thank you for your 10 years of dedicated service. We are excited and trustful that, you will continue to carry things forward. So we appreciate the efforts that you're doing. I'd love to close on just one thought, as we're thinking about the state of downtown, and this is a day where our report sort of looks back on 2024 and all that happened, and then kind of takes a hopeful look at 2025 and assessing the current environment. If you were to fast forward, 10 more years from now, and think about sort of what is the future that you want to see for DC, and specifically in this downtown corridor, what does that vision look like for you? What can we all leave on a hopeful note and see as our future?
Well, I think we all know over the work that we've done together over the last couple of years, we need a different balance of uses in the downtown. We can look at our own city at areas that have more residential or other uses other than office space, who came out of the other side of the pandemic, growing and stronger or less affected. When you have almost 90% of your real estate is commercial, you have a remote work phenomenon to contend with, and now you have a shifting employment base. So all of those things are helping us get to what at the end of the day is going to be a more vibrant mix of uses. We set the goal of 15,000 new residents in the downtown. Nina came on and said, well, that's not enough. We need more. So we're trying to plan to get more people living downtown, and people want to live downtown. And so, but we can't just wish that into being. There's a lot of policy change that has to happen to make investment in housing in general across the district cool and profitable and easy, all of those things. And so we have set about changing, like we did the public safety ecosystem, where we had to change the law, we had to make new investments, and really we had to change the discussion. We had to change how people talked about and approached public safety. We're doing the same thing in the affordable housing market and in the market, all of market rate housing for the district. We have to reset the ecosystem. Things got upended during the pandemic that have made where when I came into office, you know, I have a very strong commitment to building housing. We committed over $100 million every year for 10 years. We built and I think delivered early more than 36,000 new units in Washington, D.C. It helped us blunt rent increases in our rental market, which helps us attract families. So that's important. Building housing is important in the district, and building it downtown should be happening. So that's why we introduced the Rental Act. We introduced the Housing in Downtown program, which incentivizes conversions from underutilized office to housing. We introduced the Office to Anything, or like I say, Office to Everything, which is underutilized office to other more productive uses. So we've done those things to attract more investment. And we're really asking the council to urgently consider my proposals for TOPA, which we understand is preventing a lot of housing dollars, housing investment from coming into the district, because this TOPA, which was lauded as a protection for tenants wanting to buy, which we support, but it's overbroad and it needs to be updated. And so the council has it. We want them to act on it because it unlocks so much investment, and it will also enhance the revenues coming into the district, which will allow us to invest in so many other things. So that's a long way of saying what I see in the downtown. I see more people living in the downtown, a more vibrant downtown. I see our vision with the federal government on how to not dump underutilized federal buildings, but have an orderly plan for those underutilized federal buildings, and some really cool uses, things that we may not even be thinking of right now. So DC is resilient. We have to shift our economy. We have to be committed to tough decisions that change the business environment here, so people want to start their businesses here, grow their businesses here, open retail establishments, build housing, and help us convert underutilized space. That it hurts a little right now, but instead of having 90% of commercial, we're going to have a mix that promotes more vibrancy in the downtown. So we're excited about that. I always tell neighbors all over all 8 wards of the district and our policymakers, and they say, you talk about the downtown all the time. What about us? Well, we're investing in every corridor. We've had very successful, great streets. We have food access that has allowed us to open restaurants all over the city. We're heavily invested in clean and safe and programming dollars, as you know, and how we attract more events to every part of the city, which is also important for our economy. But the downtown and the value of our downtown for the last, I don't even know how many years, but a long time, has allowed us to have a world-class school system has allowed us to have the type of human services that help us take care of the most vulnerable in the District of Columbia. Having a valuable and growing downtown has allowed us to invest in the #1 park system and library system in the United States of America. And that's why it's important that we do whatever it takes to make sure our downtown is thriving and growing.
Mayor Bowser, that was awesome. We said earlier, downtown DC is important, one of the most important neighborhoods, one of the most important cities in the world. Thank you for your leadership and all you've done. Give it up for Mayor Muriel Bowser.
And now, for your viewing pleasure, messages from our President and CEO, Gerren Price, and Executive Director of the Downtown DC Foundation, Rachel Rose Hartman.
This is the fiscal year
2024 Downtown DC BID
Annual Report.
You know, in 2024, we tackled some really big challenges and we made some really big wins. When I look back on it all, we stood by our mayor and our city leaders to make sure that we secured the Capital One Arena and its home being in downtown DC, which was a major win for the energy, the vibrancy, and the vitality of the Chinatown Gallery Place community, and helped to secure a future for our retail and other types of life in downtown for many years to come. So we're incredibly excited about that. And this was also a year where we leaned into bold initiatives like the Downtown Action Plan, which sought to really think about how do we begin to secure and cement a future for downtown DC. It brought about our Chinatown Gallery Place Task Force, which helped us to really take a deep dive and figure out what are the big ideas and some of the small ideas that are needed to help move the neighborhood forward for many years to come. It was a year that we expanded services. It's a year that we brought more public safety to our streets. It's a year that we brought many more vibrant and fun events to help bring more life into downtown. And all around, it became a downtown that was safer, that was more welcoming, that was more vibrant. Overall, just made for a really positive year where the momentum really began to shift in the right direction.
I'm Rachel Rose Hartman. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown DC Foundation, and I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for the BID, and I've been working here since 2014. The human stories that we come across in our work, especially in homeless services. We had an older gentleman who his one wish was to be able to have the trust of his daughter to spend time with his grandson alone. After working with our service providers and doing work on his own, he did earn that back, and when I bumped into him, he said he was taking his grandson to the zoo. It's hard to translate that into text and writing in charts, but it's the work that we do in the human support services that I'm most proud of. That's Easy to Be Hope. Our organization helps instill hope in the community and individuals, helps pave the path forward for everybody. This year, we hit our 5-year milestone for the Downtown DC Foundation, which was launched in October of 2019. So this triggers a lot of new things for us and a lot of new opportunities. I wish more people knew that we existed. We have a challenge with awareness because we're only a 5-year-old organization, but I wish that more people knew the great work that we're doing for the community and also knew how easy it is to support us. We're always looking for items to donate. We need funding and monetary donations, and we need volunteers. So I wish there were more folks in the community who are getting in touch with us.
and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage founding principal of Shalom, Baranes and Associates, Shalom Baranes.
Good morning. It's a little tough being a closer for the mayor, but I'll try to be 1/10 as insightful as she was. I was glad to accept this invitation to speak here this morning because I have a particular interest in one corner of the downtown bid, and that is the Federal Triangle. The Macmillan Commission did a great job in 1910 doing what they did, but I feel that one of their major failures was the design of the Federal Triangle, and I think we have an opportunity to address that today. Next, please. I've come to view the Federal Triangle, quite honestly, as our local version of the Berlin Wall. You know, it really separates the cultural heart of our city from our commercial core, and it deprives the city of the energy that the 28 million tourists who annually visit the downtown, deprives us of the energy that they could bring to our downtown, if only they would visit the downtown. This energy would manifest itself in additional tax dollars, additional revenues, I think more housing, and certainly more jobs. Next, please. I'll return to this in a moment, but what I want to emphasize today is that the city and the federal government, I think, they appear to be missing a generational opportunity to revive the downtown by not focusing on the transformation of the Federal Triangle. The feds are in the process, I think as you all know, of disposing of millions of square feet of office space with an eye focused on Southwest, not downtown. And I believe this is a mistake, and the focus needs to shift to the Triangle. Rebranding Southwest will easily take another 20 or 30 years. The Federal Triangle could be transformed in less than 4 years. It could happen during President Trump's tenure in the White House, and it could be a legacy project for him. And to understand why the Federal Triangle offers, I think, such a unique opportunity for us, I think you have to first understand the nature of the federal real estate assets, the real estate portfolio that the government has. And I'm going to just take a minute or two here to briefly explain that to you. Next, please. So, federal office buildings basically fall into two categories. They're either melons or they're cucumbers, and it depends on when they were built. You see pre-war versus post-war. Next, please. Buildings built prior to 1940 or so are cucumbers. That's a 3-cucumber building there. So because there was no air conditioning in these large buildings before 1940, they were built with very narrow floor plates that you see there. Those are 3 bars around a courtyard. And the reason they were built that way, of course, was so that workers could sit near operable windows to get fresh air. So let's go to the next one. Post-war, we started to introduce air conditioning into buildings. And these buildings, we were able to build them with very deep floor plates because workers no longer had to be near the windows. And so these buildings housed a much larger number of workers, and most of them in interior spaces. Let's go to the next one, please. So the question is, why does this matter to us today? And I would say it matters because the design of pre-war cucumber buildings look a lot like a modern apartment building looks today. I mean, they're almost identical in some ways. On the left, you have a 1910 office building, and on the right, a modern apartment building. And what this means is that you can take one of these pre-war buildings and very easily and very economically convert these early buildings, these early office buildings, to apartments without doing any structural work whatsoever. Let's go. Converting one of the later deep buildings to residential requires a lot of very expensive structural work to create narrow floor plates, dimensions that work, and usually we find that that's not economically feasible. Let's go to the next one, please. So here in DC, a small handful of these narrow pre-war buildings are privately owned. And they generally look like this. These are 3 buildings at the corner of 15th and H, the Shoreham, Woodward, and Southern buildings. So when these buildings were built in the early 20th century, they generally tended to be about 200,000 square feet in size or so. The federal government was ballooning in 1915. They needed much larger buildings. These buildings didn't work for them. So they started building buildings, let's go to the next one, please, that look like this. These are footprints, floor plates, of federally owned buildings right downtown here in DC. These are mostly federal agencies. And you can see that they all have the thin bars I just showed you. You know, they basically have these configurations that work perfectly well for apartment layouts without any alterations, without any structural alterations whatsoever. Let's go to the next one, please. They also have operable windows. They have centrally located corridors with column-free space. And they have really nicely large proportioned interior courtyards. This is just this is a typical courtyard that you find. These two are typical courtyards you find in the interior of most of these buildings. So when you convert these buildings to apartments, unlike the post-war buildings, you don't have to spend any money replacing the facades or carving up the structure to get dimensions that work. All you have to do is renovate the interiors. Next one, please. So when you look at the inventory of federally owned buildings in proximity to the mall, what you start to understand is that the ownership is pretty well balanced between pre and post-war buildings. The feds want to dispose of millions of square feet of office space into a market that already has a glut of empty office buildings. I'm not sure who will buy these buildings if they can't be economically converted to apartments. So wouldn't it make sense from a strategic standpoint to move federal workers into the deeper post-war buildings that were designed to accommodate modern office use, and to dispose of the older pre-war buildings to the private sector so they can be converted to apartment buildings? Next one, please. I think you all know we have a shortage of apartments, as the mayor talked about, here in DC, and we also have a lot of developers looking for conversion opportunities. And as far as I know, no one is out there looking to buy a large, empty federal office building that's too deep and too expensive to convert to residential. And looking at this map, you see that these pre-war federal buildings are sprinkled around different areas. The one place, however, that has a cohesive concentration of them is the Federal Triangle at the top there. Next one, please. So imagine taking these Federal Triangle buildings on the left and creating a vibrant residential community that's not unlike what you see on the right. And this is one of many neighborhoods in Paris where you have buildings that are almost identical in terms of size, scale, even aesthetic to the Federal Triangle buildings. See the interior courtyards. And these are all residences. These are all residential communities. I mean, this is what I think the Federal Triangle could become. Next one, please. We did a few years ago look at GSA's headquarter building that you see on the left there, and converted the base to retail, as you see on the right here. Sorry, these slides are cut off. But we added all these retail pavilions on the south side of the building. And they got leased up immediately. The retail was very successful. And the pandemic, of course, shut everything down. But this is exactly what could be done to all these Federal Triangle buildings. You could convert the floors, the ground floors, to retail that I think could enliven the streets and really be quite successful. Next one, please. You know, essential to this undertaking would be re-envisioning both 10th Street and 12th Street, as you see here. These streets could be enlivened by limiting traffic on them, lining both sides of the street with retail, and creating wide pedestrian zones down the middle designed to accommodate pedestrian activities. Next, please. These north-south streets currently feel abandoned, starting at 6 p.m. every night and certainly every weekend. Few tourists traverse them once the museums and the malls shut down in the evening, and populating them and enlivening them would draw tourists north into our downtown, north of Pennsylvania Avenue, and would help to start to re-energize our city. Next, please. I'm not suggesting the government sell these beautiful historic buildings to developers, to the private sector. What I am suggesting is that they lease them out on a long-term basis, just as they did with the old post office and with the general post office on F Street, which, as you know, became the Monaco Hotel. Both these buildings were beautifully restored with private sector dollars. And I think that's the key here. This requires no public funds being expended for this effort. These are all private sector dollars. The exact same thing we did here could be accomplished, I think, in the with all the Federal Triangle buildings. Next, please. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the city has had the opportunity to participate in any significant way in the federal disposition strategy, and I think that's a real tragic outcome. As I said at the beginning, though, this is a generational opportunity to breathe life into our downtown, and I really don't believe that this moment will last very long. Our city is teeming with developers who would jump at the opportunity to sign long-term ground leases and renovate these beautiful historic buildings. I think someone needs to create a master plan, a Federal Triangle master plan that could direct this development, and create a vibrant new mixed-use community connecting our downtown, our commercial downtown, to the mall. And most importantly, such a plan, I think from beginning of design to construction and occupancy, could be realized in a 3 or 4 year time frame. Unlike Southwest, where demolishing the buildings, acquiring them, demolishing them, rebuilding, I think, and especially given the market conditions, is easily a 2 or 3 decade effort. It's not often that fate hands us an opportunity to reimagine 70 acres of prime downtown land. I think we need to articulate an urban vision that can guide this massive federal disposition of real estate and kickstart the reinvigoration of our downtown. Thank you.
So well done. Great speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. Thank you for attending the State of Downtown Forum 2025. It's always a great day in downtown DC.